What's going on, guys? This is Ryan with RK Outpost, and Jon Favreau has just confirmed something yet again about The Mandalorian that is going to be very disappointing to a lot of people. Now, this is not the first time that he's said this. It probably will not be the last. But if you are one of those people out there who is holding on to this rumor that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are actively trying to subvert everything that Kathleen Kennedy has ever done, that they are going to retcon the sequel trilogy, well, you may be one of those people who are very disappointed, because as you can see from this headline, Jon Favreau seemingly confirms The Mandalorian will lead to the sequel trilogy. Now, this is something that I've been saying for quite a while. These rumors that have been out there, whether they're coming from YouTubers, whether they're coming from message boards, or whether they're coming from websites, if they're telling you that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are going to retcon the sequel trilogy, that they are going to fix everything that ever happened, I've been saying you should really hold off on that, because everything that they have said and everything that you can see on the screen does not indicate that they will be retconning anything. The fact that they had Luke Skywalker show up and utter a few lines with the CGI face does not mean that they are going to retcon the sequel trilogy. And Jon Favreau yet again is doing an interview where he is saying something similar to that yeah, we're going to explore what happened between the original trilogy and the sequels. Take a look at this article. The Mandalorian, and this is from Bounding into Comics, shout out John F. Trent. The Mandalorian creator and executive producer Jon Favreau seemingly confirmed the Star Wars show will lead to the sequel trilogy. In a recent interview with the Writers Guild of America, Favreau opened up about the show, how it came to be, and his writing process going forward. Now, this is the entire thing. There's actually a lot of very interesting things in there. There's something in there about how he's essentially they're kind of making it up as they go a little bit. There's not a super highly detailed plan, which maybe that's just the Disney Star Wars theme. Maybe that's just how they make Disney Star Wars shows, but very interesting. This interview peels back the curtains on what Favreau had planned from the beginning when he first pitched the show to Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy, and how he plans to move the show forward into the future. Now, there are also the people out there that want to think that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are actively trying to stop anything that Kathleen Kennedy has ever done, undo all of it, that they are staunchly on this opposite side in the Lucasfilm Civil War. Now, when we talk Lucasfilm Civil War, it should be noted that these things, these rumors, these feelings about a disconnect in Lucasfilm have been going on for years. But the idea that Kathleen Kennedy wants The Mandalorian to fail, that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are doing all of these things against Kathleen Kennedy's wishes, that's just stupidity. That's not the case, because Kathleen Kennedy, the success of The Mandalorian has saved her job, and Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau both work for Kathleen Kennedy. The disconnect and these factions, as people like to call them, are from the rank and file in Lucasfilm, who some of them just feel like Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni have a better vision for Star Wars and should have more power than they currently have. And there's also a faction of Kathleen Kennedy supporters who like her vision and future for Star Wars that she really has planned, and don't think that those ideas mesh very well. But the idea of open Civil War conflict is kind of a meme at this point. But there are some people that do truly believe that's happening. And as we go further down, you can see where Favreau explained this pitch. He said, yeah, I had a pitch for a concept following the archetypes that influenced George, whether it was Western, samurai, World War II film, earlier space operas, cliffhangers, Flash Gordon. Looking at the films and archetypes that influenced George was a way for us to make a smaller story that would work on the scale of the small screen. My pitch was very simple at first, and Kathy Kennedy was receptive to the ideas I was presenting. Later in the interview, Favreau was asked whether the return of Luke Skywalker was always planned out. He said, no, the story unfolded as I wrote it. The Mandalorian inherits a great deal from existing Star Wars stories, and when I write, that context is always a consideration. Favreau then insinuated that he is indeed taking the sequel trilogy into consideration, saying it became clear that within the established continuity, certain things were likely to transpire. And then he says this: we have a tremendous amount of freedom afforded to us because of the gap in time between the films, meaning between the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy. Dave Filoni and I are in constant discussion regarding how each story choice is impacted by and would impact existing Star Wars material. Now, this should not be a surprise that they are planning on keeping this in continuity with the sequel trilogy. I know some people don't want to believe that, but if you look at everything Favreau has said before, look at this on his Instagram. This is back 121 weeks ago, right? So over 2 years ago. The Mandalorian. After the stories of Jango and Boba Fett, another warrior emerges in the Star Wars universe. The Mandalorian is set after the fall of the Empire and before the emergence of the First Order. Right? That definitely sounds like they're planning on connecting it to the sequel trilogy. Of course, you have this interview here with Entertainment Weekly when Jon Favreau says this. Also, what could have happened in the 30 years between celebrating the defeat of the Empire and then the First Order? You come in on episode 7, the First Order are not just starting out, they're pretty far along. So there, again, an indication that they are going to stick to the sequel trilogy. And when you talk about Dave Filoni, listen, Dave Filoni was part of this big group of people that were making discussions and plans for The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. If you don't remember this page from the Rise of Skywalker book that included a lot of different Lucasfilm executives, right? Dave Filoni talking about Leia, right? Talking about Leia and the matriarchy. Listen to what Dave Filoni says. There's a potential idea about the matriarchy coming back and subverting what has always been dominantly patriarchal in male heroes. And now John Knoll suggests Leia having this big role as the mentor. Dave Filoni replies, I love that. We should shift it so Leia is the Obi-Wan of the entire trilogy. It's dangerous because it makes it so about the women of Star Wars. Something to me says that's right. There's something that's happening culturally. You look at birth, regeneration, the world itself needing healing. All those things are emblematic of mother, character, and myth. They're all matriarchal things. Mother Earth her itself, global warming is a hot topic, right? So this is when Dave Filoni was part of structuring this so that Leia would be taking this primary mentor role with Luke taking a back seat. So the idea that, they would just vehemently want to remake the sequel trilogy is kind of interesting. And John points out a lot of the things that I said as well. I think he's pointed that Entertainment Weekly article that I just talked about, how they have talked before about how they connect things. And I was on a stream the other night talking about this, and I think a lot of people want to believe in their hearts that the sequel trilogy will be retconned. But when you look at The Mandalorian, look at the things that they have done to link it to the sequel trilogy. Whether you're talking about that first season where we see Grogu, Baby Yoda, use force healing just a few days before the premiere of The Rise of Skywalker when Rey uses force healing. That is clearly a link between the sequel trilogy and The Mandalorian, and a purposeful one at that. You also had name drops of things from the sequels, such as Canto Bight, right? They specifically wedged Canto Bight, a name drop, into season 1 of The Mandalorian. And when you talk about this season that we saw in The Mandalorian, there were so many connections, so many references to restoring order that it was almost like they were hitting you over the head talking about First Order, not to mention the entire tank of what definitely seemed to be Snokes or Snoke experiments with the Snoke music. And I was a little hesitant. I thought maybe those are Dark Troopers, but nope, Dark Troopers are just full droids, so that's not the case. They're connecting it to the sequel trilogy. A lot of people want to have this belief in the world between worlds, whether it's coming from your favorite website or your favorite YouTuber. But when you look at what they're actually doing, when you look at what they've said, when you analyze this with your head instead of what you want so desperately to be true, I find it really hard to believe that these things are going to happen. I do think that they're just going to play around here. They don't have to connect everything so tightly to the sequels, just little references here and there, but for the most part, just kind of ignore them. But as far as any retconning goes, Jon Favreau is once again talking about how his series leads up to the sequel trilogy. It's not the first time, it's not the second, it's not the third, it's probably not the fourth or fifth time, and it probably won't be the last. This just is the way it is. I know that might be disappointing for a lot of people to hear, but that's kind of where we are. I'm interested to hear your thoughts about all this in the comments below. Do you think this is all just fake? They're just lying. They're just tricking everybody because truly Jon Favreau is trying to subvert everything Kathleen Kennedy's trying to do? Or do you think that maybe this is just the reality, that The Mandalorian isn't going to retcon anything, Ahsoka isn't going to retcon anything, that this just is the way it is? Maybe you can enjoy that, maybe you can't. That's up to you. Smash a like button, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, share this video out there, and I'll talk to you later. Thanks for watching, everyone, and a huge shout out to my patrons. I appreciate you guys so much. Want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram? Check out the description below. You'll find links to my P.O. box and my Patreon as well. And I'll talk to you guys later.